I'm hoping that everyone has started your preparation for this exam. Basically, you have to manage the three papers, and managing the three papers in a very correct way is a very important, because this is quite difficult. If you have not just made a perfect study plan, perfect time management for your studies, so it is quite difficult to manage the three papers before just examination. So I'm hoping that everyone has started your just know I'm hoping that everyone has started your preparation for this exam. So before to begin this session, I would like to see, if you have not downloaded the Adda 247 application, download and subscribe the officers Adda 247 channel, so that you can get regular update from our side, right? So there is also one update for our batches. You can also just prepare, you can also just make a perfect study with us. Like, you are going to get a multiple mock test, multiple ebooks, as well as a live classes, because this exam is not only consist of easy questions. This exam is also consisting the moderate and difficult question for that particular sessions, like particular sessions for every chapter. That is the most important thing, because where you can directly interact with us. If you are facing any problem in any chapter, you can directly interact with us for that chapter, okay, so that you can better prepare for your examination. One more important thing I would like to say: we are not preparing you for the only 50 marks. We are preparing you for the 80 to 90 plus marks, so that for that you should just you should just make a perfect walk with us. Like, you can just make a very good plan with us for your studies. So in this, you are getting everything, whatever the sessions we are going to take, that based on the fully exam oriented. So you just do not need to worry how to make the how to make a better marks in this examination. We all are here for you, right? So as do not miss out the golden chance, because you are getting the big discount by applying the code by422. So with this code, you are going to get a big discount on any batches, right? So on any batches that related to a JAIIB and CAIIB, while you can also apply this code on the ebook or as well as a mock test, right? So do not miss out this golden chance. So now the very important concept we are going to understand, because in the previous sessions we actually understood about how to make the debit and credit entry of any transaction. In this session we are going to understand what will be the effect of the debit and credit on any account. That is the most important session, and from this session you are definitely going to get 3 to 4 marks very easily in the examination. So let's start today's session. So, like I already explained you what is the personal account. Just let me fix here. So in previous session, we actually understood about how to make the debit and credit entry of any particular transactions. Okay, so whenever we have provided like any transactions and we have to make the debit and credit entry, so how we can make that debit and credit entry, we actually understood. And for the every particular account categories we understood, right? So what the first thing that we have to do, we have to first analyze the transactions, like whatever the, or say which two accounts possibly included in any particular transactions. We have to first recognize that. Like in the previous session we understood, like suppose that Mr. A who purchased any suppose that who purchased furniture, right? Who purchased furniture like on credit from Mr. B, right? Because in this transactions, what it is the meaning of the analyzing the transactions? First step, every time you have to understand, you have to analyze the transactions, like which two or say which two possibly accounts can be included in any particular transactions. We have to first recognize that, right? So in this session, we can understand. Suppose that Mr. A who just purchased the furniture. That means one account that would be the furniture account, right? And another account, because it is purchased on the credit. That means that account, another account that would be the Mr. B account, right? So that account, another account which is understandable as a Mr. B account. So we actually recognize two accounts. This is also understandable as the analyzer transaction. Okay. So after that, actually we are just understanding the case of the personal account. So that's why Mr. B actually belongs, or say Mr. B is actually the creation of the God, right? So if he is a creation of the God, that means he belongs to the personal account. And for the personal account, we normally say debit the receiver and credit the giver. Okay. So who just going to receive, like if I say like the what person or say that person is just going to receive any kind of the thing, we have to debit that person account, and that person who is providing that services or say that money or say that goods, so we have to credit that person's account. So that we understood in the personal account. Like if I say what the golden rule of the accounting says, that is debit the receiver and credit the giver. That's the thing we actually understood by the golden rule of the accounting, which is said for the personal account. Okay, so that we actually understood. Now the things we have to understand, what it will affect on if we have to make the debit entry, if we have to make the credit entry, so what it actually implies. Okay, so that all we are going to understand. Okay, so suppose that if I'm talking about, like we have to understand, like suppose that in personal account. Okay, suppose that this is a transactions in the personal account, and in the personal account if you have to make the debit entry, so what it actually implies. Okay, so suppose that if there is no any transactions previously occur in this particular account, suppose that this account is Mr. B account, for example. Okay, so suppose that this account is a let me make this here. Okay, so this is A, this is B. So suppose that this account is a Mr. B account, and we are just understanding for the debit and credit entry of this particular transactions of any particular transaction, right? So if there is no any transaction occur in this account previously, okay, but now if any debit entry we are going to make, suppose that we are making the entry here that is 5,000 rupees. Okay, so if we're making the entry of the of this 5,000 rupees in the debit side, so what it actually implies, and you know from that you are definitely going to get questions that are of the 2 marks. So that session is a very important session. Okay, so that's why I'm just focusing you, like please just enroll in the batches, because in the in that batches you actually understand everything in the very precise way. Okay, so what I'm going to say here, that is if the debit entry of this transactions is going to be occur, suppose that 5,000 rupees that is going to be occur in Mr. B account, and it is the entry that is made on the Mr. B account on the debit side. So what it actually implies, so it actually implies that that is Mr. B account is on the debit side with the 5,000 rupees. That means this person is a debtor of the company. Okay, and debtor for what amount? That amount is a 5,000 rupees. Okay, I hope it is understandable. Now understand a very important thing, that what we understand by the debtor and what we understand by the creditor. Okay, so how we can understand, suppose that this person A and this is a, or say this person is a X and this person is a Y. Okay, so suppose that this person is going to take take a goods on the credit. Okay, or we can also can understand, suppose that this person is going to take suppose that 1 lakh rupees from this Mr. Y. Okay, so that means this person would be considered as a debtor of this person, like Mr. Y. Okay, and because Mr. Y provided this 1 lakh rupees to this person, that means Mr. Y would be considered as a creditor for this person. I hope it is understandable for everyone. Okay, so I think it is understandable that who will be considered as a debtor and who will be considered as a creditor. So who are going to take who are going to take a loan, so that person is going to be considered as a debtor in a very simple way, and who are going to just or say who are just giving that loan, that would be considered as a creditor. Like if you're talking about a bank, so suppose that you are taking a loan from the bank, that means you will be considered as a debtor of the bank, and bank would be considered as a creditor of you. Okay, so I hope you all are getting my point, what I'm going to convey here. Okay, so that means Mr. B is considered as a debtor of the company, and by what amount? That is 5,000 rupees. Now suppose that this 5,000 is actually entered here, and after that, after some time, again 50,000 rupees that you keep on the debit side. Suppose that, okay. So that means now debit increases. Now Mr. B, or say now the debt of Mr. debt on the Mr. B is actually increased. Okay. So that it actually implies. All right, I hope it is understandable for everyone. Okay. So whenever, suppose that any transactions you make for the personal account, if the transactions is going to be on the debit side, so what we have to do, we have to just understandable as this person is a debtor of the company, and that's why, and by what amount, that amount, like if initially that is the 5,000, and after that suppose that again the we have to make the entry on the debit side, so now the debt just increased by the 50,000 rupees. Now the debt would be the 55,000 rupees, so that it actually implies. Okay. Now understand, like same like if the account of the person who is a creditor of the business, suppose that we are talking about here X and Y, and Y is a creditor, suppose that, okay. Let's say the same example, if I say that is Mr. B account is on the credit side. Okay. Just let me erase here 1 minute. Suppose that if I'm talking about the Mr. B, and suppose that Mr. B actually the creditor of your business, for example. Okay. In the previously we actually understand, we actually understood about the case where the debit transactions is actually occurred on the Mr. B account. Okay. After that we are understanding, like if the account of the person who is a creditor of the business and is debit, like the debit implies that amount due to that person has decreased by the amount of the debit. Just understand with the example. Suppose that Mr. B is your creditor of the business. Okay. And Mr. B is a creditor of your business, and suppose that Mr. B is actually provided a goods on, or say goods on the credit to you, and this is A and this is B. Okay. So that's why Mr. B would be considered as a creditor of the business. Now after some time, suppose that Mr. B have to take Mr. B have to take some goods from you also. Okay. Because some goods that provided by you and some goods that provided by the EA. Suppose that Mr. B actually provided you 40,000 rupees of the goods on credit, so that means Mr. B is considered as a creditor on that time. That means 40,000 you just keep on the credit side. Now after that, suppose that you also just took a just goods on the credit from A, so that in that scenario we actually make the entry on the debit side. Suppose that you took 20,000 rupees goods from A, so that means now you have to make the debit entry on this side, like 20,000 rupees. Now it actually implies that person has decreased, or say amount due to that person has decreased by the amount of this debit. That means now now the Mr. B is actually the creditor of 20,000 rupees on you as a like in the business. Okay. So this is a very important thing. I hope it is understandable for everyone. Okay. Now we are going to understand another case, that is if credit in the personal account. So suppose that if we are talking about like credit in the personal account, so suppose that again we are taking the case of the Mr. A, and again we are taking the case of a Mr. B. Okay. So this is the case of Mr. A and this is the case of a Mr. B, and Mr. A is actually taking a goods on the credit from the Mr. B. All right. And that credit is actually of the 1 lakh rupees. So how how Mr. A would record this transaction in his book of account? So in that scenario, you can easily understand, like Mr. A is considered as a debtor and Mr. B is considered as a creditor of creditor of Mr. A, right? So now Mr. A record, like how Mr. A can record the transactions in his book of accounts. So this is A and this is B. Okay. Oh, sorry. This is a debit side and this is a credit side. All right. Let me erase here. Okay. So that is the debit side and that is the credit side. So how Mr. A will record, Mr. A actually just took a loan for the 1 lakh rupees. So like we are talking about the Mr. B account, if we're talking about the Mr. B account, like how Mr. B account will affect Okay, so Mr. B account is actually credited by the 1 lakh rupees. Okay, so in that scenario, if you're talking about again the after some time, Mr. A is actually again taking a goods on the loan from on the credit, or say on the loan purpose from the Mr. B, and that is about the 50,000 rupees. That means now again the credit entity that now we are again going to say we have to credit the Mr. B account with the 50,000 rupees. Okay, so if the account is already there, like 1 lakh rupees is already there, and again the 50,000 rupees is taken on the credit, that means now the amount due to that person is actually increases by the 50,000 rupees. That means now Mr. B is a creditor for the Mr. A for the amount of the 1.5 lakh rupees. I hope it is understandable for everyone. Okay. Now just taking the case, suppose that in that case, like Mr. A is a debtor and Mr. B is a creditor. Suppose that if I'm talking about how Mr. B record this transaction. Okay, so for Mr. B, actually the Mr. A is a debtor for the company. Okay, so if we're talking about a case like if the Mr. This is a debit side and this is a credit side. So suppose if Mr. is a debtor, like we are just understanding how Mr. B record the transactions in his book of account. Okay, so we are going to understand how Mr. B will record. So like if we're talking about Mr. A is taking a loan of the 1 lakh rupees, so it would be on the debit side for the Mr. A, right? We have to write here. But now the second case we have to understand, suppose that Mr. A just just, or we can also can understand like from this example, this is a and this is a B. Okay, so in the first case, like Mr. A taking a goods on the credit from the Mr. B for the 1 lakh rupees, but in the second case, actually the Mr. B is taking a goods on the credit from Mr. A, suppose that of the 50,000 rupees. That it clearly means that like some goods actually prepared by the A and some goods actually prepared by the B. So for some goods, like A is just taking like from B, and some goods is taken by the B from Mr. A. Okay, so like in this session, like in this case, we are going to understand now this transaction, and now we have to just credit the account of the Mr. A with the 50,000 rupees. Okay, so what it actually implies, it implies that like a credit in the account of the debtor of the business signifies that the amount for which the debtor was liable, like 1 lakh would be liable, like Mr. A is liable for the 1 lakh for paying the Mr. B. Okay, but now it is reduced by the 50,000 rupees. Okay, so that it is that all questions you are going to get in the examination in the theoretical form, and that would be of the 2 marks. So I am hoping that everyone is going to understand this in a very precise way. Okay, now we are taking the another thing, that is if the debit in the real account. Okay, so like in the sessions we actually understood like what things, or say what things we actually keep in the real account category. So we understand that all assets we keep under the real account category, right? And for the golden rule of the accounting for the real account says debit what comes in and credit what goes out. So what is going to be come in, we have to debit that, and what is going to be out, we have to credit that. We actually understood about this for the real account, right? So all the assets we have to keep under the real account. So what if the debit is going to be occur in the real account? What it means, it means that either the value of the asset, let me just write here. So suppose that we are talking about the debit and credit, because we know that like asset we can understand like by the cash. Okay, so just understand, because cash is also considered as a asset. All right, so if you're talking about like suppose that cash is going to come in, that means we have to just debit it that account. So what it implies, okay, so what it implies, that means like whatever like either the value of the asset whose account is being debited has increased, or the business has acquired more of that asset. Okay, look what we understand in the real account. For the real account, actually the golden rule of the accounting says debit what comes in. So whatever is going to be come in, it just may be a cash, it may be a furniture. Okay, So we are talking about actually the assets of any business. Okay, so whatever is going to be come in, we have to debit that. So what debit implies? Debit actually implies that either the value of the asset is being debited, that is increased, or the business has acquired more of the asset. Like the business has just acquired some machines that also be a part of your asset. Okay, so that means debit implies that your asset of the company is actually increased. Okay, now just understand another case, that is of the credit in the real account. Now the again case, whenever you are going to see the real account, you have to understand all the assets we have to keep under the real account category. So whenever you have to make the entry on the credit side in the real account, so a credit in the real account, like we are talking about, this is a debit and this is a credit. So a credit in the real account actually implies that either the value of the asset, or like whatever the account is going to be credited, the value of that is actually decreased. Okay, so like in the real account, actually the golden rule of the accounting says debit what comes in. So whatever is going to be coming, we have to debit that, and whatever is going to be out, we have to credit that. So if anything is going out from our business, suppose that cash is going to out from our business, if the cash is going to out from our business, that means this is a case of your, like your asset is going to be decreased, that we have to understand. Okay, so now I think it is very clear to everyone, if we have to understand, because you are definitely going to get question from this section. Okay, so if whenever you are just understanding, suppose that any entry that is made on the debit side, that means the value of the asset will increase, and if the any entry that is made on the credit side, that means the value of the asset is decreased. Okay, so that is a very clear example of this. I hope it is understandable for everyone, right? Now the another case where we have to understand, suppose a debit in the nominal account. Okay, so like I actually explained you, in the nominal account category, we actually keep the expenses, income, losses, as well as the gains, or you can also understandable as a profit. Okay, so we keep all the things under the nominal account category, like expenses, incomes, losses, gains, or profit. So what we actually understand about the, if the debit in the nominal account category. Okay, so it actually signifies that there has been some kind of the expenses or losses in that account. So whenever we are talking about like debit in the expenses or losses, we have to understand there has been an expenses or losses of the amount of the debit, and some income or profit is definitely has been reduced. Okay, so in that case we have to understand like some income or gains is actually reduced, that's why there has been some expenses or losses of that amount in that account. Okay, so that is that it actually means like some income and gains is actually reduced, that's why this is a case of your, if you are making any entry on the debit side in the nominal account, that means that is a case of the expenses or losses, because there has been sudden changes of the, or say you can also understand there has been some reduction in the value of the income or the gains. Okay, so that is a case of the nominal account, right? Now if we are going to say we are going to just make the entry on the credit side, so what it implies, it actually implies there is a some income or gains, or you can also understand as a profit, right? So income, gains, and profit, like there has been an income, profit, or gains of the amount because of the sudden, or say sudden reduction of the expenses or losses on that account. That's why we have to understand what implies, like if we are going to make any credit in the nominal account, that implies the income, gains, or profit because of the reduction of the expenses or the losses. And if we are talking about the debit in the nominal account, that actually implies the expenses or losses because there has been some reduction in the income and gains. Okay, so I hope this is understandable for everyone. So this class is a very important class in terms of this. I hope everyone will just understand this in a very precise way, right? So now I am again want to say, that you only have to apply the code Y422, and with this code you actually going to get everything on the Adda 247. Like if we on like for the JAIIB and CAIIB products, you are going to get a big discount. Okay, so just do not miss out this opportunity, because in that batches you actually getting everything in a very detailed way. Okay, whatever I am just conveying here in the 30 minutes, and that is actually we can also understand it is not a very detailed session for this particular, because we have only 30 minutes to describe any chapter. So in that batches you actually understood everything in a very detailed way. Okay, so you only have to apply the code Y422. With this you can get a big discount on the mock test, ebooks, as well as the live sessions. So just do not miss out this opportunity. I am once again I'm saying that. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how you can enroll in a target batch, because this target batch is a very important if you are aiming for this upcoming JAIIB examination. Okay, because this is a not a exam where you can get the easy moderate question. Here you have to be a fully focused on the basic concepts of every subject. Okay, and that all you are getting in our target batch. Like you will get everything like mock test, ebooks, as well as the live sessions. Okay, and that's a very important for clearing your examination. So now I'm just showing you how you can enroll in a target batch. So you just first have to visit the Adda 247 website. Let me show here. Okay, so this is your adda247.com, that is your website, and after that you have to go to the JIB CIB section, where you can find the JIB CIB and another competitive examination related videos. Okay, so you have to go to the JIB section, where you can find multiple batches that is actually running for you. Okay, you can enroll in any kind of the batch, and meanwhile you can also enroll in any particular batch like PPB, LRB, AFB. Okay, so I'm just talking about, if I'm talking about the new target batch that is already started, and your AB class is going to start from the 11th of April. Okay, so you have to simply just go to the JIB target batch, and where you can find multiple things that is equally important for you, like mock test you are getting, ebooks you are getting, and 130 hours live classes you are getting. And the most important thing, that the study plan, like PPB study plan, AB study plan, and LRB study plan, you all are going to get this. Okay, after that you have to go to the buy now section, where you have to use the code, that is Y422. Let me write here. So you have to use the code Y422, and with this code you are going to get a maximum discount. Okay, so you can see now the price is so much reduced, and this is this is a very right opportunity that you all should enroll in our target batch. Okay, because this is only one time investment, right? So now I would like to say thanks for watching me here. Thanks for joining me here. Like this video if you're liking our effort, liking our content. Share this video to your friends so that maximum number of our colleagues can join with us. So once again, thanks for watching me here.